said she wanted an old house that was new. In renovating this 1907 working man's Victorian, she managed to keep the historic charm while integrating some modern amenities. Welcome to Home and Away. I'm Lori Carson. Today we're visiting with Sally Hare Schreiner in her beautifully renovated 1907 home on Ohio Street. Sally, thanks very much for having us over today.
Good morning. Thank you. Very welcome.
You said to me the other day, Sally, that when you decided to do this, you wanted an old home that was new. Why was that important?
In doing that, I kind of thought that it would truly restore it and allow it to be around for another 100 years. I mean, there's a difference between just cosmetically fixing it, but I took it to the bare bones and started anew. Sally,
I know preserving the historical integrity of the home was very important to you in the sense that you researched it very thoroughly, and you did take this down to the bare bones and go from scratch to a certain extent. Tell us a little bit about that whole process.
Well, we took the original lath and plaster off, took all the woodwork off, and set that aside. Took the original wiring we took out, original plumbing, took it down to the original 2x4s, original siding, the flooring is original, and just started new again, adding new plumbing, electricity, making it 20th century house in a 19th century skeleton, basically.
The exterior of the home is technically called a working man's Victorian. Tell us what that term means.
A lot of us, when you think about a Victorian, you think about the fretwork and the lath, all the gingerbread kind of stuff. That's not the working man's. I mean, the working man's, you've got the same shell, the same peaks, the same gables, but there's no fancy work to it.
So a much simpler Victorian.
Much simpler, right.
Sears and Roebuck home.
Yeah, that's from what we can tell. It was a Sears and Roebuck home, which was, like 1910 somewhere. You literally could buy a house. They would send you the nails, the wood, the paint, the roofing, the siding, everything with a book, and you built it. And a lot of times you can tell. I think maybe that's the reason the pieces of wood are marked like a puzzle on how to put it together. And I think they found some numbers when they pulled everything down.
Hard to imagine in this day and age. The exterior style of the home is called Painted Lady.
The Painted Lady is more the way it's painted, in the sense we could just paint it with the trim and the siding. But Painted Lady is, they usually use 3 to 4 colors to make it looks like the makeup of a lady, where the windows usually have an outline, a dark outline, which these do. The peak is a different color, the base is a different color. I think there's 2 different trim colors. So I think in this house there's five colors.
The exterior of the home, again, has this welcoming front porch, and the roof, of course, is still the same. The columns, you've made a point of keeping those intact. Right. Tell us a little bit about the historic colors that you've used, the paint colors that you chose.
Benjamin Moore has a historic color series, and they've done their research and they figured out what colors, and they don't really give you any year that you want to do historically, but it's just their historic colors.
Coming into the front door, the most striking thing to me is the incredible floors, the wood floors that are original Hart's
pine.
And people will be amazed at the quality and how well these floors have held up.
Well, and if you could see what they actually look like before they finished them, they were covered with dirt and old stain and plaster, paint. It was awful. I mean, and I come in thinking, there's no way. But they came in and they sanded. They did probably sand down a pretty good layer of it. And this is a stained oil.
They're amazing. Also, the banisters and the balusters, the balusters, stair balusters, and there's a beautiful leaded window there in the hallway. Again, you really meticulously salvaged a lot of this woodwork and repurposed it.
Right. We had to actually pull the window out. Had a couple of the pieces on the lead work redone, and then put it back in, and then, as I said, we pulled the baseboards and trim off and set them aside, and then we reframed that window again using the original wood from the base, because the wood around it was unsalvageable.
And what we're seeing is basically 2,700 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2.5 baths.
2.5 baths.
In that foyer, from that foyer, we go to the left, and there's a room that we refer to, and in its day would have been called the parlor room. You've made that not only a beautiful room, but a functional room as well.
It's kind of my sitting room, office, parlor. It's kind of my room where I go to sit and read and contemplate life, basically. And I wanted to, and it's a small room. I mean, that's one thing about this house, is the original rooms are small. Which is kind of hard it was hard for me to get used to in the beginning. But it works. It works.
In addition to the natural light, there's some great built-in bookshelves here, and I also want to call special attention to a photograph that's on the wall of your maternal grandfather. Special significance because, first of all, he was an extraordinary man in terms of what he accomplished and the variety of things that he did. He was in World War II, very active in the railroad, an actor, and a carpenter whose handiwork we're going to see throughout the house. He played a pretty important role.
You know, you and I were talking about we both love stories, and Grandpa that was the stories. I mean, you know, after dinner we'd sit around and talk about all of his adventures in, you know, he was in Europe for 4.5 years during World War II, following the Allied troops with the railroad, and very quiet, very good German, stoic, quiet, but if you got him going, yeah. And yeah, the big influence.
Moving into the dining room, you added, I believe, a chair rail and a swing door to that area.
Just a traditional, old-fashioned swing door with the brass plate.
On the other side of the dining room is what was formerly a very, very small kitchen, and you've now kind of repurposed that into an entryway, a second entryway, and an expanded hallway.
Expanded hall. Half bath, so we were able to get a half bath there. And the little side entry, kind of a functional mud room that you would say. That's where the closet is, that's where the cabinet is to hold stuff. There's a clock. So it worked.
Let's talk about some of those pieces. You mentioned the clock. That's actually a grandmother's clock that was made by the grandfather who we just referred to.
It's about 2 to 3 inches shorter than a traditional grandfather clock, and so it's called a grandmother clock.
And I know another one of your prized possessions in that area is an oil lamp that was a wedding gift to great-grandparents.
To my father's mother's grandparents. Wedding present in about 1880s. It was an oil lamp, and then somewhere along the way they put electricity to it. And so that's sitting up there.
While we're on the subject of lighting, again in that same area, there's a ceiling lamp where, you know, my hat's off to you. You've really taken great pains to incorporate a lot of your personal family history into this home. Tell us about the ceiling lamp I'm referring to.
That lamp is a commemorative lamp for the building of the Brooklyn Bridge, and it was first brought out, I think, in the St. Louis World Expo. So it's an etching. You can see the etching of the Brooklyn Bridge. And again, it was supposed to be either gas or candle, where if you look, there's a little knob you would pull it down, light the wick, and then it would pull back up. So we've just added electricity to it. And so, yeah.
A great personal touch. The side door there is an original side entrance to the home that led to a downstairs basement and also leads outside, and there's a lot of original flagstone used out there, Sally.
Right. I wanted to create, you know, all natural flagstone versus decking, because there was, you know, you didn't have decks at turn of the century, and that door is kind of a historic door, and not the door itself, but the entrance. At the time, it was the service entrance where they would come and bring the coal, and they could go coal or ice and go straight down into the basement, because you'll see that it's halfway between the first floor and the basement level. So you didn't have to come into the main house, and so it becomes my side entrance out into from the garage and out from the back.
And also a convenient walkway to the lovely backyard that you have.
Yes.
I want to talk about that half bathroom, because you also, in the bathrooms throughout the home, you've really taken pains to do period tile work, chrome fixtures, again, that reflect the nature of the history of the home?
In those days, bathrooms, utility areas were white and chrome for sanitary purposes. So you'll see in my other bathrooms, hexagon floor tiles, subway tiles up the wall. All the fixtures and lightings are chrome. You know, and then there's some, like there's a bathroom with an inset tub. There's certain things that you can, I got by with because for money and ease. But it really goes together. And so the bathroom, you'll see one of the bathrooms upstairs, or most of them, they bring the color in through the walls because everything else is white.
I think one of my favorite features, before we go to break, we have to talk about, in that bathroom, there is a medicine cabinet that has a surprise for any nosy visitors that might...
In the half bath, I wanted a traditional medicine cabinet that the mirror, and you open it up, and we found once I purchased the cabinet that we couldn't put it in because there was plumbing and wiring, and so I don't know, I just thought it would be fun to paint it to look like, when you open it up, it's pieces that are period. She painted the bottles, it was Joanne Renfro, painted the bottles to look like it, and every now and then it'll say, somewhere on there, if you look closely, it'll say, gotcha. Gotcha snooping. So if you're ever in my house, yes, you are allowed to snoop in my half bath cabinet.
The joke is on the guest. It's time to go to break. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Lots more of this lovingly renovated home when we return.